That's enough. All right, calm down, you guys. That's the unmistakable sound of the Mitch Miller sing-along, which was on television, I think, six seasons?
3.5, 4 seasons, actually. Spread over 6 years, yes.
Yeah, 6 years.
Yeah.
Mitch, did you sing along when they were singing? Did you sing?
Sure, but no microphone in front of me.
Yeah. For obvious reasons?
Well, I have a lousy voice.
Well, then that's
all
why...
conductors do, you know.
No, I didn't know. Is that traditional?
Yes, you can't be a conductor unless you have a bad voice.
I said something earlier about the Mitch Miller sing-along coming back to the tube. Should I have not said that?
No, it looks like there's a great chance for it. Ted Koppler of Channel 11 and a group of St. Louis people have gotten together with the independent stations around America, and they're going out to syndicate it.
Yeah.
And we brought, I brought about 6, 7 tapes, just randomly picked, and we ran them, and everyone just went out of their mind because they don't have production values like that on television anymore. The songs are timeless. Every new generation that grows up finds these songs as new songs. The production values you cannot see on television today. And the costuming is, it's not period, but it's what you look at it, and it is of today. It's mind-boggling in a way because when we made them, I thought they would last a long time, but I honestly didn't realize the quality, the excellence that was in there.
Who owns them?
I do.
Do you really? That's kind of unusual, isn't it?
That's one of the reasons I guess I was off the air.
Because you demanded that you retain ownership?
Yes, well, what happened was we went on the first time in 1960, one shot at the end of Ford Star Time series. Just was a bone they threw. And it wasn't the network, it was Danny Seymour of J. Walter Thompson who put it on at the end of the Ford series. Then, the biggest response in the history of television, phone calls and about 12,000 letters. But the schedules were already set the previous February.
So there was no room for it.
No room. Then Telephone Hour wanted 7 telecasts every other week. And, they have to take care of the Telephone Hour because they own the country. And so they wanted something to alternate with it. And so they put us on for 7 the following year. And started up all over again. So then they came with a firm 3-year contract, and that was one of the conditions I asked, that I retain ownership of the shows.
So they're yours?
Yes, I didn't have to fight for them. They gave them to me, yes. Yeah. Well, I of course, I took less money for the shows, but the ownership was very important to me.
I don't suppose you could produce a show like that today for that kind of a budget anymore either, could you?
No, I don't think so. It was $135,000 for an hour in color.
Whew.
And in those days, the color cameras were always going out, and you had to re-register them, and the time involved. But we went in so prepared, Jack, that we always came in within budget, and I made a tidy profit on it too. And the people I paid everybody way over scale.
Yeah.
Because that's the way you save lots of time, just
to get the best people you can get.
Exactly.
Yeah. Were any of the people with you all the way through? Did you retain a lot of the people through the whole show?
Oh, absolutely everyone was all the way through.
Yeah.
I would work with them. Most of the guys on all the recordings, the early Guy Mitchell recordings in 1950, 51, they were on those recordings. And then when we went to go on the air, when they saw these first shows, the first show, and we wanted to sell it, and Camel wanted it, and a lot of people wanted it. Said, well, get rid of the fat guy, get rid of the bald guy.
Yeah.
I said, no, people in America, if you get the best physicians or the best professors that you could find and group them together, they'd look like these guys.
Sure.
Or the best bookmakers or the best butchers.
What did they want you to have, like male models?
Yes. If there's enough of that flitting around the screen.
The Johnny Mann singers were pretty. I mean, they were all attractive.
Yes.
Yeah. Yours looked more like the people who lived across the street.
Exactly.
And they were...
No, because when I hired them for records, I was going only for singing and musical talent.
Yeah.
And these guys every one of them was a music graduate. Everybody thinks we pulled them off the street. They all had degrees in music for instance, there were 4 guys who were known as the Norsemen, the 4 Norsemen. Remember early radio? They came out of the University of Minnesota. Later, three of them became the four Texaco guys. The four guys used to men
With
of
Burl?
Texas with Burl.
Yeah.
They were the quartet with the star on the hat, and then one guy sang with Covent Garden. Bob McGrath, who was the youngest at that time, who's just out of Michigan. He'd done his apprenticeship with Fred Waring for a year on tour, and I heard him. And now, of course, he's a big star on Sesame Street. And when he comes for personal appearances, he packs the place. His kids are also grown. They're part of the show now.
Oh, darn. Was the same people that were seen on television, were those the same voices heard on the albums?
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
How many albums were there?
There are 20 albums. Yeah.
What was the total sales on it?
Total sales over 20 million.
Whew.
And until 1976, we were the #1 album seller in the country. The Book of Lists had that down. And then, of course, when Presley died, he sold more albums after he died than when he was alive.
Yeah.
RCA was offering the Victor for sale to some big conglomerate, but then when they began pressing Presley albums, they withdrew it. And then, of course, came the things like Saturday Night Fever, but more
The
than
Beatles weren't that big in their heyday
in America.
Yeah.
I sold more albums than they did till 1976. All over the world, they sold more than I did.
Right.
Yes.
Are the albums still available today?
Well, it's very interesting. The record companies, pushing only the rock and roll, sort of neglect them. They'll press or they'll not press. And there's lawyers and accountants running the companies now, every one of them. So you may find them and you may not. But very interesting, a distribution company that sells by television just signed a wonderful contract with me, and they gave me a hefty advance, and they tested the market, so they don't lay out that kind of money without testing markets. I gave them 2 months to test in 2 cities. They came back and gave the advance, and so you'll have an ad on even this station coming up in the next month or so
on television where it says buy this album or albums or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. And they expect to sell a minimum of 500,000.
Good Lord.
Because that's what they paid me for.
And the last sing-along album was done when?
I would say 66, 67.
12 years, 11,
Yes.
12 years.
I did one, a peace song sing-along in 68 as my way of protesting the Vietnamese War.
Yeah.
But that was the only one.
Yeah. Your ears must burn a lot because we make at a point here to talk to some of the artists and people who record or so on who go back a few years, not that many years, but your name comes up when we talk to Johnny Mathis, and when we talk to Frankie Lane, he talks about you more than he talks about himself, and so many of the Columbia people that. Well, when you A&R'd at Columbia, an awful lot of them came up under your direction. I think Johnny Mathis started out, but then you didn't have too much to do with him after that.
No, I had to do with him through the Broadway album, and then he had this manager who was outrageously, selfish towards herself, and we ran into some problems, and so she wanted to own all the songs that he was recording.
Yeah.
And I just wouldn't put up with that. And actually, Mathis, who was a fantastic talent, that's when he began to sort of slide downhill.
Yeah.
And then, of course, but the measure of his talent is that he's big today. See,
yes, he is.
And he's still, this is 25 years.
Yeah.
Tony Bennett. It's 27 years. Frankie Lane, people, he may not have a hit record, but he goes, I would say he goes to England every year and walks away with $250,000 in fees, let alone what he does in America.
Sure.
Because these people know how to entertain and perform. Rosie Clooney with the 4 Girls 4, have they been here yet?
No.
Oh, it's a most fabulous evening you'll ever hear. They have Rosie Clooney, Helen O'Connell, Margaret Whiting, and Rosemary. They do a whole evening.
I read about them playing the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco.
For the first time in the Fairmont Hotel, they were waiting in line for the second show. The first show was always sold out.
Right.
But the second show, I went there. It was just tremendous, and they're better than ever. Oh, and young people come. I was up at the Beverly, Massachusetts, one of these outdoor theaters, and tent theaters, And you hear kids, 18, 20 years, they said, listen to Rodgers and Hart and Carney say, listen to those lyrics. This is just discovering words.
Rediscovering those
Yes.
songs.
By the way, Jack, I'm in town to conduct the St. Louis Symphony.
Right.
This Sunday afternoon at
Powell
3
Hall.
Powell Hall.
3.
And then a week from today on Friday at 8 o'clock. Now, Sunday is practically sold out, but there are about 400 seats left for Friday.
Okay.
We're doing a whole Christmas program with the Billup Singers, a black choir who just sing their hearts out. We'll do things like Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. We'll do selections from Wizard of Oz. They'll do Hark, Hear the Bells, ding, daddy, ding, and the Fum Fum. And then they'll do some Negro Christmas spirituals, some black spirituals, and I apologize for using the word Negro. It just shows how old I am. And then we'll have an audience sing-along with carols and the chorus.
Oh, neat.
Oh, and this is quite a tested program. I have two very good Christmas programs, and I know it works. So
now Sunday at 3.
Sunday at 3.
Is that sold out?
That's sold out, yes.
But the following Friday evening.
Yes, at 8 o'clock.
And there are still seats
There are
available
about,
for that.
300 seats.
With the Billups. Are they going to do Oh Happy Day? I know they didn't record Oh Happy Day, but that happens to be one of my favorite choirs.
Is that a Christmas carol?
No, it isn't Christmassy,
No.
but I just thought they might do it.
No, they're doing two marvelous spirituals. In fact, they did them so well with Mr. Billups. I said, you conduct them because I could never get that feeling.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to get in their way. But he trained the chorus for us, and I had a rehearsal with him last night. I was with him for 2.5 hours, and I'll have one more before the concert. And it'd be quite a memorable concert. I urge you, if you have time, to come on a week from tonight.
All right, now wait. Now between Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock at Powell Hall and the following Friday, what do you do?
Well, I go back to New Haven and conduct the Boston Pops on Monday night.
Okay.
Then I fly out to San Francisco the next morning and do the San Francisco Symphony, and then I come back early in the morning. I take the red eye on Thursday night after the concert. I'll be here 6 in the morning, and I'll do the concert that night.
And then after the concert here, the following Friday night, what do you do between then and Christmas?
I get on the plane and go to Edmonton, Alberta, up in Canada, and do 2 concerts there. And then I get home the 22nd of December.
Mitch, is that typical? Is that all year long? Are you on that kind of a schedule?
Well, usually I don't go from city to city like that. I usually go back to New York and weekend concerts, but so many people want this Christmas concert that it worked out that way. And but I enjoy it because making music, I don't have to tell you, Jack, you've been around long enough. When you work at something you enjoy, it's not work. We're lucky people because I don't think 0.1% of the people in America are working at something that they truly enjoy. We're very lucky, They get into, I don't care what big executive you are, you get into a routine, you have to report, here we go out and every day we have to woo the audience, make them like what we do, and hopefully they do, and that's what keeps us going. And it's also very risky, but that's part of our business.
Are you a little upset inside? Are you a little unhappy about the changes in the music business? How different it is today? It is different. The record companies are structured different. Music is certainly different. Tastes are different. The sales are at an all-time high in terms of the number of albums, the number of dollars, and so on. But it isn't the same.
Well, they're at an all-time high for one reason. There are 3 times as many hi-fi sets as there were in the early 60s. Also, you're finding 8- and 9-year-olds buying records. Who buys Kiss except 8- and 9-year-olds? And even Saturday Night Fever, I've seen a lot of young people who want it. And I can understand that because there's a rhythmic drive to it. But that is not the only music that there is. When I can fill halls, time after time, when the kind of music you play, you have the top audience in St. Louis. It shows that these record companies are not thinking of anyone who's over 30. And I think they're losing a big profit, but they're blind. They just do what's immediate. The best way to say is look at it is how many of these songs will be around even 5 years from now, let alone tomorrow. Take any of the songs and look at the lyrics and read them as a lyric. And you find, baby, I'm going to make you a star. Baby, I'm going to make you a star. Baby, I'm going to make you a whole song written on 4 words, 5 words. And the harmonic structure. Oh, by the way, there's some very good artists. I'm talking about when you talk about Chicago, Chuck Mangione, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin. They'd be big in any era. Those are true artists who are, and their songs are especially good. What I'm talking about is the mindless, simplistic kind of thing that has no excellence, no structuring. It depends on walls of amplifiers to blast you out of the room. It depends on painting themselves up with ridiculous costumes, biting off chickens' heads, carrying snakes on the stage, busting guitars. Look, there's a place for it, but that is not the only thing. To me, music is like a 5-ring circus. Something good is going on in every ring, and just because something may be in the center ring does not mean that the others don't count.
Except that the record companies are not making the other 4 rings available to the record-buying public. That's the sad part today.
That is the sad part. And ironically, especially Columbia, my label, they get tremendous cash flow from all these artists in their catalog. And if they would break down their profits, they would see that a big chunk of this comes from stuff that they never had anything to do with. These lawyers and accountants who are in there, they just look at the bottom line. And would you believe it, Jack, that they don't even have one producer in the popular division up there? They buy everything
pre-recorded. The artist does it, brings it in, and they take it on account.
And the way the artist does it, if it weren't for a 16 and 24 track tape, they'd never be able to make an album, because they go in, it takes them a year to make 12 sides. They go in, some of the people on the album never even meet each other. And they have no concept before going in, and they not only can second guess themselves and come in the next night, they can 100th guess themselves. If they don't like this, get somebody in, you can change a wrong note. So the spontaneity is gone, and the idea of hearing an arrangement and having the singer react to that arrangement and interact with it doesn't exist anymore. Rosie Clooney told me she made an album in England. She sang the songs and did it with a rhythm track. Then the orchestra was put in later, and she heard it, said it sounded good, but she said if she had heard that arrangement, she would have phrased differently because of what the arrangement did. And there's no spontaneity, as I say, and it's all comes out as chromiumized as toothpaste.
I remember Frankie Lane's story about Mule Train, where they couldn't get the mule sound, the cracking of the whip right. And in those days, everybody recorded together on one track, and everybody had to be right, or you had to do it over again.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
And now, of course, they can bring the guitar player in today and the rhythm people in March and put the whole thing together.
Let's sweeten this. Let's do that. Well,
is it easier today?
Sure, it's easier because people of small talent can end up making a decent record because they can go back and correct their mistakes.
So the technical can overcome the lack of ability.
Yes, the technology becomes a crutch instead of a tool.
And that's sad. That's really sad because the listener suffers.
That's right.
They're not getting that spark. But Mitch Dave Hill told me something interesting that I never knew until this very minute, that you were in the orchestra when the Mercury Players did the War of the Worlds, when Orson Welles did the War of the Worlds and scared the pants off 30% of the people in the United States. And you were playing in the orchestra.
Yeah, I was playing my oboe, and I was a staff musician. I played in the CBS Symphony, but when we weren't doing symphony, I did castellanets and then all the things that called for symphonic players. And we thought it was quite a dull show, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yes. It wasn't until halfway through we saw police come into the station, and then Davidson Taylor, who was then vice president, he was 6'7", and looked so dour. He was standing back, but we kept going. It was live, and not until I got out and saw what was going on in the streets did I realize what panic it has caused. And it's very interesting. Some stations rerun it now. They will take disclaimers out for a week before. they'll take an ad in the paper saying it's a rebroadcast of this, and still people panic. Not in the same degree, but they call up and they call the police station. What shall we do? They call our civil defense.
And sitting in the studio, you
Yes.
had no idea that anyone was taking
No.
it seriously.
Because nobody stopped to think. See, what happened was Charlie McCarthy was on, Jason Sanborn was on opposite us. And when Charlie McCarthy would get off with Edgar Bergen, he'd do a spot, then they began switching their dials. And I'll never forget, we said they saw this strange vehicle coming down in the Jersey marshes. Well, if they saw it coming down, then the next minute, they said, we now have the reporters, the mobile unit is there to report by radio. Well, nobody stopped to think, how did they get there that fast and from where? And those who turned away from the Chase and Sanborn hour heard the mobile unit, and they thought it was real.
I'll be darned.
Of course, the climate of the world, that was when Hitler, was threatening the whole world, and so they were paranoid to begin with, and then out comes this creature from outer space.
So you didn't grab your oboe and run to the foothill.
Actually, we suddenly became, I think, some Italian name, and now we stand by while the dance music comes from a fake hotel name, and then they interrupted that and things, and of course that made Orson the big man that he deserved to be, and from there on, Campbell Soup took over the program, and then he went out and did Citizen Kane.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting. That was in 1938.
Yes,
1938. Yes. Well, Mitch Miller, you mentioned now, let's see, there's a performance Sunday afternoon at Powell Hall, and then the following Friday evening.
Right.
And there are still tickets available for Friday. And you told me what the chorus was going to do, but what is the orchestra going to do?
Well, the orchestra is going to do the Vaughan Williams Green Sleeves. We'll do 3 carols arranged for symphony orchestra by Hershey Kay, who did these for George Sal. One's a fugue on Deck the Halls, then Patapan, and then Joy to the World, the way Bruckner and Stravinsky and Brahms would have written it. And then we do, the Sleigh Ride of Anderson. We'll do the Christmas song. And, of course, the whole audience will sing along with the orchestra and the choral and the Billups choir in the carols. And I love to come to St. Louis because this, to me, is one of the great orchestras of the world. And they recognize as such, but I wonder if the people in St. Louis know. And on top of that, they have a wonderful new music director coming. He was here as an assistant for a few years, and that's Leonard Slotkin.
Right.
And he's conducted every major orchestra in the world to tremendous accolades. And
not only the orchestra, but Powell Hall is a superb hall.
Oh, yes. And St. Louis and the St. Louis Symphony were the first to rejuvenate an old building that had all the qualities, and they made it into they were the trendsetter, and it's been followed by Pittsburgh and other cities, taking an existing building with marvelous acoustics, and I look forward to coming back. Every time I come, it's a fresh, marvelous experience.
Do you have a favorite Christmas song? One?
I don't know. I guess it's either, chestnuts roasting on the open fire or White Christmas.
Yeah.
Yes. But I don't know, choosing a favorite Christmas song is like choosing one of your children as a favorite.
Yeah.
It depends on the mood and where it is and what happens.
And what they did yesterday.
Yes.
Mitch, I suppose the beard is particularly nice for Christmas. It kind of gives it a Santa Claus thing. You've always had a beard since I remember. 1948, you had a beard.
1940. It's never been off. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. I don't know what I'll find if I shave it off.
1940.
Yeah.
Beards weren't big then either.
No, I was known as the Beard. The only other beard I remember was the guy in the Fleischmann East ad, remember? And Commander Whitehead.
Yeah.
Those were the only ones.
And the English actor. There was a heavy-set English actor.
Oh, yes.
Cabot. Sebastian Cabot? No.
No, he had it later. No, there was I forget his name. He passed away recently, but he was a wonderful actor. He was in that Scottish-British movie about the Scotch troops. I'm trying to remember the name, where they played that great bagpipe song. And in fact, I recorded it. I tried.
Not Amazing Grace. No.
No, the Scotch people would know it immediately. It's terrible, but it was so long ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember the title.
So you've lived to see the beard come back. That's something.
Yes. Well, that's an expression of individuality.
Yeah. You've always been an individual, haven't you?
Well, I guess not consciously. I think I do things that. For instance, I've carried a bag for 14 years.
A handbag.
A handbag over my shoulder, because I carry all the stuff in my pockets. You buy a suit that costs a couple $100, and it looks like it costs $30.
Your pockets get big.
Sure.
Mitch Miller's here. We'll be back in a few minutes. You stay with us. Coming up on the 12 o'clock news. Mitch Miller is here with 2 concerts with the St. Louis Symphony. One that you can't go see because that's sold out that Sunday afternoon. But a week from tonight, there are still tickets available for the Christmas concert.
There are about 300 tickets available, and I suggest you call Powell Hall immediately, because I'm sure that, that last-minute thing, the people wish they could have gone. So I would love to see you there. Call now.
You want to give us a preview, sing a couple Christmas songs?
I told you how conductors, the prerequisite of being a good conductor is to have a lousy voice.
Wait, let me find it. I had some calls, questions for you to answer, if I didn't lose them. They came in. Marie took these. Wait a minute. I'm not sure I can figure all these out. Somebody called and said, was Mitch Miller involved in jazz recordings with Charlie Parker many years ago?
Yes, 1948. I played on Parker with strings, the first time he ever recorded with strings. And I produced the album, too, for Norman Granz.
Lenny of Sha Na Na, did he sing with your Mitch Miller chorus? Somebody thinks that Lenny in the group Sha Na Na looks like somebody used to sing with.
No, he didn't, unless, no, there was no Lenny there. No, he didn't.
And I don't know what this means. Denise Laura singing Danny Boy. Was that ever recorded? Do you know that name?
Denise Laura was a record artist, yes, and very good, but I had forgotten. But I don't know if she sang Danny Boy.
Well, Mitch, I think this is ideal weather for a Christmas program. I think you planned this snow. I think you got the white Christmas and everything going just to attract an audience to Powell Hall.
Well, don't let the streets confuse you, because I've driven, and they're all right.
Oh, yeah, there's no real problems out there. I was very pleased before to hear you say something that I've said before, that so few people today enjoy their work, enjoy what they do, can't wait to get to work in the morning. I don't think it's just in our business. I think that there are people in every business who have that enjoyment, but not nearly enough people.
That's right. I think that's one of the illnesses of America, because you don't come at the end of the day, you don't feel that a sense of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. Many people are just a slot on a chart, and replaceable at will. Mm-hmm. And I know the corporate structure has made lots of profit, and we get lots more material goods from it. But I don't know what to go back to, but it certainly has not fulfilled the personal yearnings and fulfillment.
The human values have been ignored, haven't they?
Absolutely.
Did you get as much personal joy and fulfillment out of making records as you do performing for live audiences?
It was different. Performing for live audiences, you know ahead of time from past experience almost what to expect. And if you have a fine orchestra like the St. Louis Symphony, you're home free. Yeah. Whereas if you make a record, there are many ifs. Even though the record may be great, that'll come out. The best example is the first time I ever saw your face was made by the girl on Atlantic, the wonderful black singer. And it was in the middle of an album. The album was out 3 years, and Clint Eastwood was making a movie called Misty. And it was about a disc jockey. And he personally loved that song. He put that song in the movie, and it became a smash hit. And now that record was out 3 years. It would have gone lost forever. And so there's all these chances of, people call it luck, and I say it is luck, but the song had to be there in the first place for Clint Eastwood to hear it. And it shows that a quality song can be a big hit, because it's one of the few quality songs that has become a hit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wasn't aware of that, but timing is very important in that.
Oh, and you cannot predict it. In fact, if you're astute, you'll be ahead of your time. So you have to be persistent enough to use the same idea again. Don't give up because it didn't work the first time.
Well, as the grandpa, as it were, the A&R director of Columbia, with all of these people, Frankie Lane tells stories about songs that you brought to him that he didn't want to record. He knew they wouldn't be hits, and of course they were, because you knew better than he knew what he should be performing. He knew how to do it, but you knew how to select, and you nurtured and brought along all these people, a Rosemary Clooney, a Doris Day, a Johnny Mathis, a Frankie Lane. Did you ever have a favorite? Was there one of that stable of stars at Columbia that you're particularly fond of today?
Well, there again, it's like asking to pick one of your children as your favorite. But I think, to me, Frankie Lane is the epitome of somebody who did not change one bit by success. Anyone who knew Frankie Lane before I met him, when he had That's My Desire, and everyone thought he was a black singer. Nobody knew that he was in his 30s, that he was bald-headed. He's the first to tell you. He wears a toupee. But then he was bald. He was working in an aircraft plant. And so he made his success at a time when his values, he knew what it was. And he never went crazy and demanded. He never traveled with an entourage the way some of these rock people do and some of our regular artists. And he has remained the same human being, and I have a special place in my heart for Frankie for that reason, because he is the same person. Another one.
Wait, I want to ask you one thing. Don't you think that you touched part of it there when you said he never really made it till he was over 30?
Yes, that's the secret.
Now, if he'd been 18 years old and had a hit record,
Yeah.
you couldn't expect him to handle it the
Yes.
same way.
Well, there's a phrase I use. They're not psychologically prepared for success.
Now you start to say there's another one.
The other one is not in. Is one of the giants of our record business, but not a performer, is Jerry Wexler, who's a vice president of Warner Brothers, and he found he recorded Aretha Franklin after John Hammond found her, and Columbia didn't do well with her. And he has a feeling. He doesn't have the musical education, but I think he has the most instinctual, wonderful feeling to get the best out of an artist. And when the Atlantic was bought by Warner Brothers, he got a big sum of money. And he has not changed one bit. Sure, he has a better apartment. Sure, he has fine wine, but he's the same Jerry.
Yeah.
And I always love to see him, and he hasn't changed one bit.
Did you record Joan Weber, Let Me Go Lover?
Yes.
What
yes.
happened to her? Because we're running out of time. She disappeared.
She disappeared. She's probably a happy housewife, I hope, somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And Guy Mitchell disappeared.
Guy Mitchell has a ranch. And Guy could not handle success. He'll be the first to tell you. He started with a drinking problem. They begin to fear. Is it luck? Is it something? They can't put their finger on what made him a success because they're afraid they may go back, to looking for their next meal.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had the same voice, they're the same person.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very hard unless you know what you have. So even if you get success by chance, study your craft, really learn it so that you know what you're doing, so it doesn't come only from
So it
instinct.
isn't an accident.
That's right.
Well, Mitch Miller is here, and maybe we'll have another chance to visit, if not during the next week or 10 days, one day in the near future. This Sunday afternoon, the concert at Powell Hall sold out.
Yes, although they may have some returns. Some people who have the subscription.
Check.
Sure, they should check with them.
And the following Friday night, Mitch Miller and a special Christmas sing-along program at Powell Hall.
With the St. Louis Symphony.
Merry Christmas, Mitch.
Thank you, Jack. Delighted to be here.
It's 1 o'clock. I'm Jack Carney. See you tomorrow on The Comedy Show, KMOX Radio, St. Louis.